Welcome, and thanks for joining us for another episode of Co-Girls on Air, a podcast exploring all things technology, female leadership, careers, education, and topics within the nonprofit sector. On this episode, we interviewed Eden Celeste, who is a staff product designer at Apex Fintech Solutions. Join Makayla and Eden to hear more of her story.
Welcome, Eden. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you.
Yeah, me too. Do you think you could start with your story? Just how did you get into UX?
So UX, at least when I started working in the industry and software and stuff like that, wasn't particularly a field, even though it's actually been around for forever. Like the moment anybody does anything, there's a way to do it that's fine, and then there's a way that kind of sucks.
Right.
And so it's just sort of newish to the software industry. So I sort of started out in a very kind of roundabout way. Like I did production graphics for a long time for the automotive industry. Then I sort of moved into marketing, website marketing, social media marketing. And I also ended up doing a bunch of product management. So I worked in product management. And then I worked for a company, and this was when I was in marketing, and they were having a really hard time understanding, getting people to use this app they were building, this new app they were building, and they couldn't figure it out. They couldn't get people to use it. And so I'm sort of hand raiser. Hey, I think I can help here. And so I said, have you tried UX? Have you done any usability studies with it? And they were just like, no, what's that? So I scheduled up, I set up, I ran a detailed usability study. I had everybody, from a wide range, from people from 15 years old all the way up to a 60-year-old, people working a variety of stuff, and had everybody try using the app because they said, oh, this app will be for everybody. So I had to get a solution of everybody,
Right. Yeah.
And it was eye-opening. We recorded the sessions, and then we shared them with developers and stakeholders and stuff like that. And they said, "Oh my gosh, this solves so much." And then they were like, "Well, how would you like a UX job?" So I switched from marketing into UX.
Wow.
And I've been in that sort of since, and I love it. It's like the perfect intersection of psychology and marketing and product management. You have to understand what the business is doing, but you also have to empathize with the users.
Mm-hmm.
And I just sort of feel like my entire career I've been working towards a UX role.
Wow. Well, that's really incredible. Cool that you made your own position just by wanting to solve a problem.
Yep.
So your background includes marketing, product management, and product graphics in the automotive space. How did all of those experiences kind of prep you for the user experience field?
Right. So marketing is very much about psychology. How do people do things? Why do people do things? How do you get people to do things? It's a very psychology based field. And I've always been fascinated with people, with their psychology. Why do people do things? How do they do things? So that was a pretty obvious mesh, but I don't like manipulating people per se. So and I did not appreciate that part of the marketing job. And product management, when I worked in product management, it was really eye-opening about how the businesses worked. When I first started working in software, I sort of had this picture of this cabal of really smart people, working, and they had all the answers, and those were the people running the company. And when I got up into product management, I realized, nope, actually, everybody is just like me. They're just making guesses. They're making educated guesses and hoping,
Yeah.
So that was super eye-opening that the business are run by people, and the business needs, what they're trying to do is they're trying to solve a problem for the business and for the users. So again, that brought back to the user. But I was like, the main thing that really clicked for me, what got me into UX was when I was working in production graphics, we had to map all of these. I was working on pictures of cars. So I would cut out cars from the backgrounds, make them color change photos and stuff like that. And we had to basically map each picture to a different automotive line. And so I had engineering create me a tool that would basically allow me to add different body styles and stuff like that to the pictures.
Huh.
And I discovered that engineers don't think like, they have a specific way of thinking.
Yeah, they
And
sure do.
so, and so in their thought process, since I was going to add this image to 10 different types of body styles and not add it to one body style, they were just like, well, you click on all these things you don't want to add it to, and then you click on exclude, and I'm just like, that's not intuitive. Like, for me, I want
Yeah.
to click on the things I want to add, and then I add it.
Yeah.
So, and that was one of the key eye openers for me, was just that just because an engineer can develop it and design it doesn't mean that that's the way that non-engineers think.
Yeah. No, definitely. So I kind of want to make a shift into more what UX actually is, because a lot of people don't know what it is. Can you explain it like you were explaining it to somebody who's never heard of it before?
Yeah, so UX is basically, what does this make you feel? Like, it is about emotion. It is about feeling. That's why it's called user experience. It's how, as a user, do you experience something? We use UX is in every part of our daily life. For instance, you want to use an elevator and you push a button, and if the elevator is not working quite right, like, the button might turn on, but the doors don't close, nothing happens, and you're just like pushing the button a lot, hey,
Yeah.
are you working?
Hmm.
Whereas a good user experience will be, you push the button, it makes a bing, it tells you what it's going to do. You see the number light up, and you go to the floor you're expecting to go to. So that's an everyday occurrence of a user experience. And
Mm.
so, but when we talk about user experience in the software field, what we mean is about, if you're using an app, is it acting the way you would expect it to act? Is it helping you or hindering you? If you have a little bit of time, I can give you like another example.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so um, one of the last jobs I worked at was information security, and we were developing a app that would allow you to basically replace the password. And
Mm.
we've all gone through it. Like, there's everything wants a password. If you log
Hmm.
into an app, the first thing you see is a username. Type in your username, or on your phone, and then give me a password. And then the really bad ones ask you for password, and it has to be 12 characters long, and it has to have
Yeah.
pluses and minuses and underscores and all of that, and then it doesn't show you what that you just typed, and it expects you to type that again because it wants to make sure that you know remember it. But in
Hmm.
my last field, we call this security theater. Like, this isn't actually more secure, it just makes you feel more secure.
Right.
So modern apps like have finally figured this out, right? And they sometimes they even just bypass that password entirely. They send you a message to your phone. Maybe you just enter your phone number. It already figures out your phone number based off of the device you've logged in with. And
Hmm.
then you just, and it appears on your screen to enter it. Okay, click there. No more
Yeah.
security theater, no more passwords, just get into your app. Obviously, that's not a very secure app, but for most people, in most cases, that's going to be enough.
Hmm.
So, long way of saying, UX is figuring out what the problem is, how to solve it in a way that feels good to the user. It gives you a good experience.
Yeah. Thank you. That's wonderful. So you work on enterprise tools, correct?
Yes, that's been my focus.
Which are different from apps built for entertainment or shopping.
Yeah, there's so many different fields, like in UX and software. Most people are familiar with iPhones, or with, you go to the store and you want to buy something. Like, those are very much retail apps.
Hmm.
Enterprise is a smaller subset, so this is somebody's job. So you
Okay.
want to help somebody do their job better, faster, so they are more efficient, so they get better,
Hmm.
kudos from their boss, they can do more work, with less effort. Like, that's
Gotcha.
enterprise.
Okay, so can you tell me why you love that kind of work specifically? compared to the others?
Yeah, so I mentioned that when I was in marketing, I didn't really like manipulating people.
Mm,
Um, Enterprise does not manipulate people. My job is to make people's lives better. Like, it doesn't matter what the field is, we're all doing work, we all have a job. My goal is to make it so somebody's job is as effortless as possible. Like, I
hmm.
like to say, if I could have an app that read your mind and just inputted it all without you doing anything other than thinking it, that would be the perfect app.
No, you're not wrong there.
Right? But yeah, it's just clearing out the roadblocks in front of people so they can
Mm,
get their job into and out of their app.
gotcha. So you've said that a great enterprise user experience should get people out of the app as fast as possible. Can you kind of get more into that?
Yeah, so one of the things that I work with a lot is forms. Everything that, like right now, I'm working in basically a stock market clearinghouse. And so there's so many forms you have to enter in about, your customers, you fill out like Salesforce. A lot of people are familiar with Salesforce.
Hmm.
Salesforce, you have to enter in like the client's name and a bunch of different information that's saved to a database. Like, it's all databases all the time. So
Yeah.
I deal with a lot of forms. And so one of the things that I try to do is make educated guesses about what my users are trying to do with the forms. For instance, they've just gone to a bunch of different pages. They're trying to find an account, say, and a person on an account. And then they realize, okay, well, I need to, I found the person. Now I need to add this new account type to this person.
Hmm.
I can make some guesses based off of what sites and what they're looking at for what they need to fill out in the form. So rather than make them enter in a person's name over again, they're viewing that person. So let's just enter that information in. Let's make some guesses. They can edit it, but we can save them like 10 different steps by just making guesses about what it is that they are trying to do,
Yeah.
which allow them to get out of that form as quickly as possible.
Yeah, definitely. Saves a lot of time, I'm sure.
That's the point.
Perfect. So I kind of want to go into the work and how making complexity can feel easy. What's a complex design that you've solved that has made you really proud?
Honestly, it's grids. Grids like something you don't think about. It's super like dry subject.
Yeah.
Google is a prime example of a grid. Like, how do you show everything is like almost everything is run on data, like data, and
Hmm.
data is a grid, right? It's you're trying to find a website, so it gives you the name of the website and a little bit about it and some information. Like, that's a grid. Like, Google has solved it in a pretty nice way. A lot of
Hmm.
other companies have, but in finance, there's grids, and if you're working with your bank account, you don't want to have a bunch of information obfuscated. You want to be able
Right.
to see everything about your bank account in there. So that
Hmm.
is what I work with day in and day out, is how do you display a grid so it is easy to see, easy to understand, not too crowded, but crowded enough that you don't have to sit there and scroll down and down and down to see all the data. So that is a constant um, play that I'm constantly working with users. What is the perfect grid? And
Yeah.
like I said, it's super dry, but it is a subject that I spend a lot of time with, and my team spends a lot of time with, basically solving the perfect financial grid to show
Mm.
users. And I will say the answer is customization. Like, one
Huh.
size does not fit all, but we had to do a lot of research to be able to come up with that answer. I mean, it seems like an easy answer, but it really isn't, because that's a
Hmm.
lot of development effort. So you have to prove to the
Yeah.
company that that development effort is worth it for the users.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. So what would you say was the hardest user experience lesson for you to learn?
When to stop. Um, so, in a perfect case, when you have tons of time, you can start out, you can really start understanding the problem. You can go talk to the users. You can have user shadowing sessions, which is where you ask them to show you what they're doing. You ask them to show you how they get their job done. And you've got all that time, and then you can do wireframes, and then you can do wireframe prototypes, or you can let them move around stuff, and then you can talk. Like, there are so many steps. Like, if you're going to a UX school for UX, like, you learn all of the steps, and that's great. It's wonderful when you have that time. I will say that in most of my career, I have had a fraction of that time. So how do you get to done enough and stop messing with the art, right?
Yeah.
And that's been really, really hard to learn, is when to say, okay, devs, let's build this, we can iterate. Like, just making that cutoff, that call. Okay, done enough. We'll come back to this.
Yeah, this is good enough. We need to move on.
Yeah, and I will say that talking to other UXers, that is also one of their hardest things to learn, is just when to cross your fingers and hope, it's good enough.
Yes. Yeah. So kind of on that note, how do you balance, finding the right timing, but also balancing creativity with rules, deadlines, and business needs? How do you do all that?
Well, I talk to people a whole lot. I have business partners. If you're lucky enough to have a strong product management team, which I do, my current company, that your product manager is your buddy, your partner, your partner in crime, as it were. They are there to tell you what the business needs. And it saves so much time when you have that. So, and then I also have dev leads. I have, with every project I'm currently working on, and I will say that I'm lucky that my company is big enough to do this. I have a product manager who I am teamed with, and I have a dev lead that I am teamed with for each of my projects. And the product manager tells me what the business wants. I figure out what the user wants or needs, and then the dev lead tells me what we can actually do. So, and then it's just a constant conversation. Like, it's not, we're all working towards the same goal. It's just finding out how to get there and balance it. But yeah, it's about working with the people you have available.
Gotcha. But I'd assume sometimes business needs and user needs would kind of clash. How do you navigate that?
Well, I will say that user needs will rule if you have proof, if you have documentable evidence. And that's why stuff like job shadowing and user sessions are so critical. The company wants to make money. Like, the company's goal is to make money. And if you can prove through data that doing this for the user will make the company money because the users will like it and they will do it more, the company will say, yes, make it work. But, otherwise it's just an opinion. It's your opinion versus their opinion, and you can get into arguments. But once you start getting that user data in there, then it's no longer an opinion, it's data.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that's where the user research comes into play.
Absolutely. And that's why being a UXer is so critical to a company. Like, sometimes companies don't realize that they need us, but it's really, I think, one of the most pivotal roles that we can provide is that user research. And that, that basically key into what the user needs. And I actually will say,
really sorry.
I was going to say, and that's actually one of the key things, is that users will tell you all sorts of things, but one of the UX researchers or UX person's primary goals is to not, like, what they say they want is great, but watch them. We spend so much time watching the users and figuring out where their pain points are, because they might tell you, I don't like the way that, something is labeled. It's confusing to me. But when you actually watch them work, they're using that, but maybe they're clicking on something else instead of what you want them to click on. So you really need to fix the other thing to make, their request null and void, basically, because if you fix the problem, their request goes away.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. What they see as a problem might not really be the problem.
Correct. And that is more often than you might think.
So, kind of switching gears here, what advice would you give to somebody curious about user experience, especially if they're coming from a different field?
I would say that if you're somebody who has empathy for others, or if you like problem solving, it's very much a problem solving where the problem is what's causing the people problems.
Mm-hmm.
What got me into it was just realizing that everything has a feeling and empathy. You need to be able to understand why people do things. Like if you're interested in psychology, like why do people do things, how do they do things? If you like to help people make their lives a little bit better, if that gives you a good feeling, user research and UX is probably a good field. If you like working with computers, so I love working with computers, but I still like talking to people. Like I'm a
Yeah.
complete introvert, but you wouldn't necessarily, in my day job, I talk to people all the time, but it's really about helping people. So that gives me a
Mm-hmm.
lot of, makes me feel good about my job. I go home knowing that I've helped people, and I love that.
Yeah. I'm sure that's very fulfilling.
Yeah.
So you also mentioned how you were passionate about helping women in tech. What are some of the things you wish more women knew early on?
Speak up. It took me so long to get rid of training that a lot of women get. It just sort of through society that tells you if you do a good job and you're quiet and you don't make waves, everybody's going to notice you and you're going to go far in life. And that does not work in the
Yeah.
business industry. I wish it did because it should. But, if you have a manager that's really pays attention, like it probably will, you'll get you pretty far. But I won't say that all managers that. So don't assume. You're gonna
Mm.
like speak up, take notes about what you have done for the company and speak up about it. You're allowed to say, "Hey, I'm doing a pretty awesome job. Look here." Most of your male coworkers will be doing that already. So if you want to compete, talk about what you're doing. And you don't have to be like, "Hey, I'm so sweet. I'm so awesome. Look at me." But you can say, "Hey, boss, this is the things I've done in the last 6 months. I think I need a raise." You can
Mm-hmm.
ask for that. Be your own advocate. Talk
Mm-hmm.
about what you need. Don't wait for other people to give it to you.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. Um, so aside from, loving the psychology aspect of it, but then also wanting to help people, are there any other skills or interests that would point somebody to UX and think, oh, that's something I'd like to do?
Well, I mean, like I said, it's about being interested in helping people, solving problems. I know
Mm-hmm.
quite a few UXers who come in from, uh, a lot of them have portfolio, they do creative work. I will say that it's a emerging field, so there is a lot of interest from the tech world, whereas stuff like
Mm-hmm.
graphics and that sort of stuff are kind of becoming more niche towards those agencies, whereas UX is still very much in demand. Even with the emerging AI field, UX, like computers can aggregate data, AI can aggregate data really well, but what they can't do is figure out what's making people tick. They
Right.
cannot watch a video or talk to somebody and understand the nuances of voice and tone and irritation and that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say UX right now is very much AI. I won't say it's proof, but it is. I think we're going to go hand in hand with AI updates as it goes through, rather than be replaced.
Mm. So would you say, is there a tool or method in user experience that you can't really live without or that you use day to day?
Oh, well, that would be Figma. I think that's what everybody's go-to, but that has really been main my main tool. I think everybody like learn it. It's so easy. Like they've said this is a tool for UX designers. We need to get UX designers to help make this tool. So it's so intuitive. It's so easy. And I'm sounding right now like a commercial, but it
No,
really
that's
is.
great.
If you want to learn it, I've tried a lot of different UI tools. The last tool we used was Axure, which was an amazing prototype tool, but not easy to get into, not like Figma. And
Mm.
also Figma is easy enough that, our dev teams, our product teams, like, people who don't necessarily use UX tools all the time are in it all the time and commenting and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's been very helpful.
oh, I'm sure. Would you mind explaining just kind of what it does for people who are completely unfamiliar with UX tools?
Yeah, so Figma is a wireframing design prototype tool. They've got so many different things with it. I mainly use it to, create pages that outline, what our apps are going to look like, and I create all these different screens. It's got a nice feature that it allows you to create components. So, like most companies now have their entire design system in that, so you can merge that with an actual component library that the developers have, so we can name it the same things. And so when you're showcasing, your designs, that they will match perfectly with designs that, or with components that the developers have built. So
Oh,
it
gotcha.
allows you to do all of that. It can show light and dark mode if you're using it correctly.
Hmm.
With they keep rolling out stuff, so if you don't keep up on it, even 6 months ago, Figma was a very, very different animal, and it keeps improving.
Wow. Well, that's wonderful. I'm glad that tool exists for people like you. Would you say there's a favorite part of the user experience process that you like best, whether that's wireframing, prototyping, testing, something else?
Well, honestly, playing with Figma and playing with tools is my happy place. Like I would spend all day, every day, just sitting there playing with pixels and making stuff pixel perfect. And recently, I've been working on a prototype, and I got a lot of my schedule cleared out so I can work on this prototype, so we can show stakeholders and stuff like that how this entire app. And it's been like my happy place. I love it. Um, it's playing with digital toys. At least that's how it feels to me. And then you can make pictures, and you can make stuff just like, and you can, click on it, and you can show, okay, we click here, and then this drawer pops open, and then it does this thing, and you know, so
Yeah.
it's fun. I love working with Figma. I'd say the other thing that I like is, in software, the people that you work with are smart and they're fun, and I love working with folk in the tech field. Like my teamwork is like we're buddies. We go out for drinks when we can, or
Yeah.
hang out, talk about things. Like it's not just some coworkers. Like it becomes kind of a family, and that's really fun.
Yeah, I'm sure. That's wonderful. So kind of wrapping up here, what's something you hope our listeners today have taken away from your story?
What I would love for people to be able to take away from this is that UX is more than drawing pictures, creating UI, working with developers. Is real at the core of it. It is understanding why people do things and helping them, facilitating their actions, and whether that's getting work done, or whether that's buying something you're trying to sell them, or any of that. And it's more than just understanding that, it's also gathering data to help the company you're working for, or the
Mm.
business you're working for, be able to sell products, like be able to understand the users, so they have confidence that what you are making is going to be something that is going to benefit the business. So that's what I would, love to have people take away, is that UX is extremely important, not only for those who are doing it, but also for the companies.
Mm-hmm.
And getting into UX is a really fun and fulfilling job. It's creativity, it's problem solving. You're working with some of the nicest people you will ever meet, because people get into UX because they have empathy for others. And
Mm-hmm.
so you're going to meet like the best people in the UX field. So I think it's great. I love it. It's the best job I've ever had.
No, I agree. You've sold me on it for sure. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we really appreciate you coming on. This has been super insightful.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Next week on Co-Girls on Air.
Obviously, like Thailand and Tennessee, very different.
Yeah.
But when you experience those cultures, you realize like people there just they all care about the same thing. They want the best for their families, and they want like good things for their community. And I think at the center of that was like education and opportunities. So I feel like in those areas, a lot of students wanted to like go to school to learn more about the world, but also like seek out what they can do in the future and like apply themselves to. And I think I really saw like the power of education to take people forward.